Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of benefits and staffing task force to order. Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Commissioner Marecki here. Commissioner Kenife. Commissioner Doll.
Here.
Vice Chair Clark Coleman. Here. Chair Bell.
Here. Okay, thank you. Next item.
Item B, unfinished business, there is none listed. Moving to item C1, under new business, discussion on Wayne County staff compensation.
All right, so we had our first meeting last week, and as I said at that meeting, that was kind of the overall general meeting, what we're gonna be discussing, how we're gonna frame up this task force, try to decide what our results are going to be. What I wanna do, as I thought about how we're gonna see, is take it in two parts. First part being salary and compensation, and then after we have a good discussion on that, come up with some recommendations. Then we'll move over into the benefits, more specifically, medical benefits, because that is a hot button item for a lot of our employees. So we'll do it in two parts. The first part again will be where we are with compensation. What I asked the administration was to kind of give me a look back as to where we were in compensation about maybe 5 years ago, where we are today, and then projected where we are going to be moving forward. So these next few meetings will be around compensation and where we need to be to attract talent, where we need to be to retain what we have, and just making sure that we are competitive when it comes to gathering people to work for Wayne County. As you know, we have about, 1,000 openings or so in various departments and elected officials across the county. And we really need to take a deep dive in what we can do to mitigate that, improve that, and get our workforce up to where it should be to provide services to our residents. So that being said, I'll take your comment, Commissioner Clark Coleman.
Okay, so we had a discussion at, we had a, is it,
Ms. Bo? Yes.
oh, okay. We had a discussion at our public safety meeting on 1/11.
Okay.
And we talked about why, when they have these exit interviews, if they keep track of why people are leaving. And so Samaya sent me a report
Okay.
that I'm going to forward to
Oh,
you
sure. Yeah, right.
because it talks about their reason, how many percentage, how many indicated there were, let's see, officers resigned. 104 resigned, 100 okay, and then it tells why they resigned. They might have resigned leaving because of lower starting pay, indicate they're leaving because of lower benefits, indicated they're leaving because of mandatory overtime, indicate they're leaving because of lack of opportunity, and indicate they're leaving because of the increased retirement age. And indicate they're leaving because of the elimination of healthcare post-retirement. Now, that was in 2020. And then they had a report on 2021, 2022 of why these officers are leaving, which might be a good reference for this committee.
No, absolutely right, especially the career path issue. I wrote that down. That's important. People want to know that there is a career path for their employment, that they are leading up to something. And then the retirement piece, I'm sorry, that's the third piece we're going to take a dive into, retirement and what that looks like.
Okay.
And the drop program that I spoke about at the first meeting as an alternative to maybe keep some people here, especially in law enforcement. So that's good. And I would also ask when our personnel director comes up that was just for the sheriff's office, I presume, correct?
Yeah, it was just
So
a
we
here.
need probably something like that for all of our ex-Fleet employees in all departments and in all elected offices as to why they're leaving, so we can have a good database.
And I'm pretty sure that all of them have exit interviews. We just haven't had the data
Now,
on it.
to say what it is.
Right, so I just forwarded it to you.
Okay, great.
So you will have that information.
Okay.
Which does, which will prove to be invaluable in what we come up with.
Yes, how we turn that tide, obviously, so we want to know what the issues are, so we
Right.
can prevent that from happening.
Right.
Thank you for that, I appreciate it. Okay, Commissioner Murphy?
Thank you. And in addition, as we go forward and get that data, I would, and I don't know if this can be obtained, but it would be interesting to see where people were going to be employed after they left, or if they quit and not seeking employment. And I don't know if that can be.
And but it says it here.
And that, in the sheriff
But
budget.
yeah, it
Okay.
says for a better job.
Okay.
No, but I mean, actually, like,
Or where they going to
are they actually going, or are they dropping out of the workforce?
Together,
Or
are they seeking of employment?
especially in 2020, I wonder some of that too. But I mean, going forward, it'd be, and I don't know if that data can be obtained, but I'd like to know if they are dropping out of the workforce, or they actually found another job and that they're leaving because it's a better opportunity.
Great, thank you. And I'm hoping- We are directed taking those notes down as well.
Can I ask you one? So, clerk office, do you guys have, Madam Clerk, do you guys have exit interviews when people leave you do? So can you provide us with information of why they said that leave them?
Yeah. Okay, and we'll have an opportunity for, so we do have our clerk here and our prosecutor here to come to the table to speak of their experiences too. Oh, yes. But first, if Donna could come to the table and the Commissioner Dodd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd also like to request that we get some data too, because, I mean, we can have discussions, but we need data to work with there. So, I think, we need data on why people are leaving. We also need data on what we, at Wayne County are currently offering. So, what are our current salaries that we're offering for every position that we have? What are the current health insurance packages, our health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, all the insurances? Do we offer any sort of childcare reimbursement, any sort of student loan reimbursement or repayment packages? What are our paid time off policies? Do we offer maternity or paternity parental leave? Parking, do our employees have to pay for their own parking?
Right.
And then also work from home options for certain positions. I think that's a huge thing for people now, well, I'm gonna say post-pandemic, but, since a lot of private companies now offer work from home options 100% or at least part of the time. So that's very desirable for people who, for work positions.
Yeah, what I think I'll do is have those questions asked to the administration so that when we meet again, we can have those answered for us. So we have a jumping off point for those specific questions, but I think that's going to be important to guide our conversation. In 4 weeks' time, that should be enough time to get those answers. And then also for our elected officials too. So have, but that's interview, GS interviews, and what do you see as low hanging fruit that can address that? I know I've talked to both the ladies here about parking. I mean, that's like low hanging fruit, something that we could possibly look into to at least keep the people from quitting, hopefully, if that's one thing that, it's small, but if your salary is not such that you can't, that you're taken away from it, if your salary is not really your salary, because it's deducted by your parking, right? So, we'll talk about that as well. I think there are opportunities for us to address that. So, but this time I did ask, Donna to come and speak to us about just salaries, again, where we were, where we are, what the plan is going forward to increase salaries. Years ago, about, oh gosh, how long has it been now? 6 years ago, we were supposed to have a compensation study done. And I don't think that ever happened. And of course, now the compensation will be different now than it was 6 years ago for various positions. But I want to know if we're still doing something to that extent. Are we looking at private sector? Although, you never can compare private sector to a public sector work, but I want to know that we're at least kind of in the ballpark close enough that if people want to serve their community and serve citizens, that is not going to put them in the poorhouse either, right? So if you could just talk to us about where we are with salaries. I know the great thing that we did, we raised everyone up to $15 an hour. So that was excellent. But what else are we doing as it pertains to salaries? Name and title for the record.
But make sure I'm on. I'm Donna Wilson, PHR Director. And I have with me Matt Cremona, and he is the Labor Relations Director. And I'd like to just start off by saying good afternoon to everyone. And we've come before this body a couple of times through the collective bargaining process when we've negotiated contracts and pay increases. And so, as you know, about 90% of our workforce is unionized. So we'll be able to report on what we did for bargaining, and I'll have Matt do that and some of the pay increases. But I do want to kind of talk about the compensation study and kind of go through a couple of points before Matt talks about the wages. So there was a compensation study request, and even though the study itself was not done, every wage that we bargained, every proposal we did do a market analysis, and that was through a vendor with pay factors, pay scales that were approved by the commission. And so we did do a market analysis when we did our proposals in our contract language. That's one. And some of the other items mentioned, like a hybrid work schedule, the county does offer a hybrid work schedule. Now, not every position can be a hybrid work schedule, but many are. And so those are things that we have started to pursue with the county and will continue to pursue. Parking is an economic benefit and something that we should discuss, as part of this group and part of the benefits structure. One of the things that we noticed with recruitment and testing is that making it available for individuals. So now we do online testing where individuals don't have to come down to the government building. Or we do testing in the community at WC3D where parking is free. We also offer bus passes, and we also pay for parking at First Street, because if you're looking for a job, to pay $20 to park to just come take a test for the job, it can be a barrier.
Right.
So we started doing some of those things to increase our potential for recruitment. So as we go forward and looking at the wages that we did bargain, I'll turn it over to Matt. But just as a reminder, we do have 15 unions that we bargain with individually and collectively.
Thank you. Matthew Carmona, Interim Director of Labor Relations. Thank you for inviting us here today. As Ms. Wilson said, I'm just going to do a summary of what we've been doing for the past year and a half or so in labor relations to address some of this. As you mentioned, the $15 an hour minimum, we all know about, you've brought up. But I'd say in summer of 2021 is when we started looking at things, and we started focusing on specific positions that we saw a need, either a significantly below market or a lot of vacancies. And one of the first positions was nurses in JDF and public health, and that was with the GAA unit. And so that at that time, we negotiated increases of 12.5% for the roughly averaging 12.5%, and increased starting salary by more than 18% for that position.
Do you know what the numbers are?
The starting salary in front of me, I have the starting salary went up to $63,000 per year.
What was it before?
I I apologize. I mean, I can look that up, but I just don't have that number in front of me.
So right now, the starting for nurses was 63.
Correct. Or, actually, you know what? They may have gone up with the general increases,
2.5%.
2.5%, yeah. Yeah. So there's that. Another area we looked at was the court clerks, and we entered into an MOA with the ASME group that represents them, and we provided sort of the goal is running a bit of a career path. So you have a court clerk 1, a court clerk 2, and a court clerk, a senior court clerk. Again, what you were discussing, so employees could see that there is a career progression ahead of them. And we had increased starting salary there by approximately 8%, and incumbent increases average about 7.8%. And that
I'm
was,
gonna ask you for every percent, did you give us the actual dollar?
that's fine. So I can give you the starting. The incumbents is a little tougher because those could vary, based on the employee population pool. But the starting rose to 37,100 per year. And that was in August of 2021. So that's probably is higher now by virtue of a couple of those general increases.
Okay, so 37.1 starting salary plus 2%, 2.5%.
Correct, right.
Thank you. Quick,
Just a quick one too. Are the hiring qualifications on these as well? I mean, do they have to have a college degree or any of that? You know what I mean?
For a lot of our positions, a high school diploma is required, and so I was just talking about the court clerk. And then we also look as one of the classes that we test for too. So not only minimum education, then passing the qualifications exam. And some of our other classifications look like will go over, we did a change in the engineering classification system. So obviously a bachelor's degree with engineering is required. There may be some minimum alternative education experiences, but as you can imagine, if we're going to hire an engineer, we need them to know engineer. So those classes that we can use alternative education and experience, we use it, including military.
And so how about nurses? Are they BSNs or
We have LPNs and
LPN and BSN? So would that 63,000 be for the BSN?
yes.
I have to double check that.
And then just for the clerks, as you mentioned, I have an example, the 37 plus the 2.5% brings up to 38,000, a little bit over 38,000. If I'm not mistaken, our 36 district clerks make about 40,000. So that again is a barrier when someone is choosing between the city of Detroit, County of Wayne, $2,000, is substantial to people. And I'm not sure how many clerk court positions there are, but if you take that $2,000 times, I don't know, 100 positions, but I mean, I don't think it's that big of a stretch to make sure that we have full employment. So that may be something to consider as we move forward. I just wanted to put the example out of the clerk, so I wanted to make a point to that. Okay, go ahead.
And the reason I mentioned court clerks is because there was where they were addressed specifically
Mhm.
as opposed to across the board. Similarly with the juvenile detention specialists. And this would be in August of 21, where we increased starting salary by approximately 11%, bringing it to 38,000 per year at that point. And we also did introduce similarly JDS 1, JDS 2, JDS 3, so that they can move through there. There's also a GAA unit in JDF that draws from the managers union that draws from that pool of JDS employees. So that is an additional potential, movement. But the number of those positions is fewer than the JDSs, but it is there.
Before you move that, what positions are you referring to for JDS?
The juvenile detention specialists,
Okay, so those are those deputies?
those are not Wayne County deputies, so they're represented by ASME Local 409.
So these are like clerks?
No, ma'am. They monitor the residents in the juvenile detention facility, serve the meals, monitor them, and
Correction officers, think of correction
They're
officers.
correction officers, oh, okay.
pretty much entrusted with the care of those residents. So we did reach agreements with the sheriff supervisors. That was just a general, in the course of bargaining that was reached in, October, the fall of 21. During the same period of time, the POAM bargaining unit, did go through the Act 312 process. That award came down in November 17th, 2021. And that contract increased starting base pay by more than 25%, taking it over 40,000 per year for the starting pay. And if memory serves, the first year of that contract was a 2.5 general increase. And the second and third year of that contract was 5% each.
So how does that, how does that compare with the Detroit police officers? Because they got a big jump. They got like a $10,000 jump.
Right, so I would think.
And so their contract is up now. And so we have received a demand to bargain, which is, standard procedure. So we will be meeting with the sheriff's office and the union and the bargaining sessions. So comparing to the new wages of Detroit or comparing to the wages at the time is we got to
Compare it to the new wages of what they're making now and what we're making.
So, so that's part of the analysis that we're doing right now in terms of bargaining preparation. Those increases came in after the Act 312. I believe it was after about the same time as that Act 312 award came in. So of course, we have to look at the comparable communities and we'll be doing that, but POAM's contract expires September 30th of this year. So this is all part of that bargaining process going on right now.
And you'll be looking at making sure that we're comparing apples and apples, Oakland County Sheriff, Macomb County Sheriff, Washington County Sheriff, and then probably even the state correctional officers.
Right.
That's the same type of work. DPD is a little bit different type of work than the correctional officers in the state level or at the sheriffs of our surrounding communities.
I would,
I'm sorry, we look for the state, the corrections officers are a separate bargaining unit than the state troopers. So we would look more at probably the state troopers.
And Commissioner Rickey?
So how long did it take with the Act 312? How long did that process take and then get a judgment? By that time, is it like obsolete?
No, I wouldn't say it's obsolete, but there is retroactivity involved in
Oh,
it
there
because of the nature, because you're really not going to end up at 312 unless your CDA expires. So the goal is always to reach a negotiated agreement. But as we're familiar, the municipal employees in Michigan are not allowed to strike. So there's other dispute resolution mechanisms involved there. For the public safety, it's Act 312. So just real brief with that is you go through, if you are unable to reach an agreement and you get your final best offers, you file with Merck, and then there's a whole process to select the arbitrator, and they hold hearings, and you submit briefs, you put on witnesses, and you make your arguments to the panel. Panel is made up of an independent arbitrator, one representative from the union, or one representative from management, and then they put together, and then the arbitrator decides. Kind of like a baseball arbitration. You take one person's proposal, one party's proposal, or another party's proposal. The last go around, which was 21, I want to say I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say that the potential arbitrator names were provided to the parties in maybe March or April of 21. And then the decision was rendered in November of 21.
Okay. It's not too.
It's really been streamlined as compared to say, look at 05, that time, it's really been streamlined since then.
And I just want to make sure that I don't limit our ability to look at comparables. We would look at the state of Michigan State Troopers and corrections officers. I don't want to limit our ability.
Right, and of course, as we're developing proposals and doing what we do in the bargaining piece, we're going to look all over. Ultimately, the appropriate comparables, if it goes to an Act 312, is ultimately decided upon by the arbitrator. We'll make a ruling as to what the appropriate comparables are. And then at that point, of course, you focus on what the arbitrator has told you are the ones. But to echo what Ms. Wilson said, we don't limit ourselves in that when developing our proposals and that phase.
But we have to be concerned, Madam Chair, with the cities. What the city's paying, because this people, I mean, these deputies will go over to the city in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
If we're not competitive.
Yeah.
So, even though, cities, the municipalities might operate differently.
Yeah.
Or their responsibilities are different. We will lose officers to the city of Detroit if they're paying $10,000 a year more.
If they'll take them. If we get it, they're probably getting people from all across.
Yeah,
Right now.
but they're down.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. Unfortunately, law enforcement goes down across the country, so we're just trying to do what we can to keep the one that we have and get even more here in the county. Our focus is the Wayne County and what, make sure we can get our people employed and staying employed is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, we are looking at the city of Detroit, you know, it's a matter, I think, with their most recent raise.
Yeah.
It's a timing issue of how it falls into the normal course of our.
We could go through more classifications, but as you said, you're gonna provide us a questionnaire, some questions that you would like for us to answer. One of the things that, just to remember that for the next 2 years, October 1st, each of the bargaining agreements have a minimum of 2.5% increases. So those are general wage increases. And just as we are providing information and there's questions being asked of us, that's one of the things that we still have increases coming to our Wayne County employees.
And that's 2.5 every year.
Started this year, so October 1st, 2.5, next year's 2.5%. And I think that's it, 24.
Most of the contracts that certainly the ones that represent the bulk of the employees are going to be expiring in September 30th of 2020. POAM is the one that expires this year. There's a couple of the smaller units that I think extend to 2025. But the bulk of them are going to be 2020.
Commissioner Markey and Commissioner Dodd.
I just have a question, it's a little off topic, but when you raised everybody to $15 an hour, did you get any blowback from employees that were possibly making $17 an hour and didn't get any kind of raise?
I mean, we did hear from that, and that's sort of always not always, but whenever you raise, especially at the bottom, you know, it kind of filters up. So to that point, one of the things we did in this series of negotiations was when we got to the AFSCME non-supervisors group. We again targeted certain positions to look at more closely where we did wage analyses for. And I think the county originally brought 11 different classifications to the table. And then AFSCME came back and we ended up discussing and specifically looking at and doing wage analyses on an additional 15 classifications. And many of those classifications fell within that area you're talking about, where maybe they're making 17 and now someone gets moved up, and how does that affect the chain? So, you know, there obviously, as mentioned before, there has not been a full scale compensation study across everything for some time. But what we did do is we did try to recognize that. And instead of just going in there and bargaining and saying, you know, here's a rate for across the board, we said, let's look at these specific positions that merit closer attention. Let's see what the market says, and let's come to an agreement, which is what happened.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Dodd?
Madam Chair, completely forgetting my original question because I was listening to it. Commissioner Maraki said, and then I had another thought.
I can come back.
Yeah, go back.
You're not old enough for that.
We'll come back, but I have a question though. And you probably have to answer this right now, but this is one of the questions that I'm gonna want to know the answer to. The 2.5%, what does that equate in dollars? If you get 2.5% across the board, all the departments, what is that?
The cost of the county is a draft.
Yeah, the cost of accounting.
Sure.
What was that dollar? What is that dollar? I don't know if we have it today. If not, then that will be one of the questions that I'll put in for answering for the next meeting. Because that's a big piece of all of this.
So, no, we don't have the answer today, so we will give you the answer. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Dow? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember.
Okay, you got it.
What department, do you have any rankings on what departments are most, like by percentage, most understaffed?
Most departments, we do have some high, I'm gonna say that every department is gonna say that they're understaffed. But we have classifications that we kind of call our high recruitment classifications. So the court clerks, the clerical specialists, the juvenile detention specialists, the public service maintenance workers, equipment repair. So police officers. So we do have those that are high recruitment that we look at, and we do we do that.
Yeah, I would love to have that list to us by, what the positions budgeted versus how many staffed and, if we can get that data to us.
We do track it and look at it on a monthly basis for the number of filled positions, vacant positions, budgeted and requisition positions.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Couple of,
Just one quick point. I'm not gonna go through other details, but I do want to stress too that there were additional unions with whom we negotiated and reached agreements with in this past time period. And if I could just briefly go through Michigan Building Trades, we reached an agreement with them that was effective November 24, 2021. The GBA, which represents attorneys in the prosecutor's office and the corporate counsel office, we reached an agreement with them that extended their contract, and that became effective January 20, 2022. The hearing and vision tax, theirs became effective April 2022. The AFSCME non-supervisors was effective April 18, 2022.
And I'm sorry, before you go, are those 1 year, 2 year, 3 year?
No, these are the ones that are going to be ending in 24.
Okay.
Yeah, so these were set out for additional years.
Okay.
The supervisors, we reached an agreement last year with them to extend the CBA, the AFSCME supervisors. And all of these included pay raises, of course. GAA, we reached an agreement with them that the agreement was closed, I think, end of this past summer. And the effective date went back to April 18th, and that called for substantial raises, I think the initial 8% across the board, and then followed shortly thereafter by 2.5% effective on October 1st. And dietitians and nutritionists was another one, and we do have one more outstanding that we're close to wrapping up in the operating engineers. And just the reason I wanted to throw that out there very briefly was that labor relations have been very busy bargaining over this past 18 months, trying to do what we can where we can to get increases and extend the contract.
And we are bargaining, you're talking about everything from the wages to benefit of you. Is
So-
that how your conversations, when you're bargaining with the unions that they take to their members?
This go around was a bit unique because instead of waiting for the natural course and for these contracts to expire on their own time, we entered into mid-contract bargaining. And because of that, and because the goal was at that particular time was to get give raises for people, it did focus only on salaries and wage increases. That's not to say we don't recognize that benefits has been an issue, and to the union's credit, they did raise those issues with us as well. But given the nature of what we were trying to do with the number of groups we were trying to do it and the speed with which we were trying to work, it was a focus on salaries.
And I just also want to add, when we talked about earlier bargaining, there was the GPA. I wanted to make sure we mentioned GPA, which is for the attorneys. And, that is a group, again, that we constantly are trying to recruit, and wages are maintaining competitiveness.
Absolutely. Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, on that situation, what are the attorneys make? What is a base pay for an attorney?
For court counsel or for the prosecutor?
Or, either.
Prosecutor work?
Oh, they make less than LPNs.
It make less than what? Less than that.
You the LPNs. That's, $20,000 off for that. But anyway.
Prosecutors, come to the table, please. And Madam Clerk, to the table, if you don't mind, please. You were right at the table. The question that Commissioner Clark Comer asked was, what's the starting pay for prosecutors and then starting pay for court counsel lawyers as well? You would know that.
60,000.
50,000 starting pay for prosecutors.
APA ones.
And they have to be, they have to have experience, because they're not.
Yes, they are, they obviously have a Juris Doctorate with a doctorate degree.
Yeah, that.
Yes, and so, oh, thank you. So I wasn't prepared to give it, I give a legal script and do it in like 5 minutes, but we make, it's 60,000 where we are, which is behind Oakland and Macomb and behind some offices in the state that have 2 prosecutors in the entire office. Because as you know, in Michigan, we are on the county system as opposed to just the attorney prep system. Every county, no matter how big or small, has their own elected prosecutor. So we are obviously by far the largest. We do about 69% of the entirety of the criminal cases in the state. And so we, like I said, we start at 70. I'm sorry, 60, I wish. I'm sorry, 60.
So to cut you off, sorry, but that 60, is that with the 2% increase or that 60 plus 2% increase?
That is a question. Like I said, I was sitting on the
Yeah,
outside.
No, the GVA, which covers, it's the same scale for both the prosecutors and court counsel. It's a little unique as compared to other bargaining units in the county in that they have a step system where they receive a step increase. They don't get a general increase, but they get a step increase on October 1 of the years of the contract. So you will, I think, 60/50 is a starting, and then if after you're there, when you're there, you would increase.
Yeah, absolutely like that, because especially when we talked about, just for the record, especially when we talk about the most underfunded, I know all of my colleagues, elected colleagues are the same way, but again, each of my prosecutors have 15 homicide cases apiece, when they should have 10. And, you know, domestic violence, 400 cases apiece, trial prosecutors, 300 cases apiece, sexual assault, 50 cases apiece. The director of my child abuse unit have 97 cases. And these are, fraught with, not fraught, but they are, a lot of them are homicides, et cetera. So I just don't want a few words here to paint the entire picture of how things are right now. And again, we're behind. I can name some counties, but again, making less than some counties who don't even have any capital cases to deal with, for example.
But no, Madam Prosecutor, I saw in the audience, so I want to make sure that I acknowledge you and allow you time to speak, but please come back to our next meeting. I will have some other questions for you as well. If you can just provide-
Yeah, before, please.
I was shocked when I heard that we had some of the public defenders, we were doing a contract with public defenders. And I was absolutely shocked when they said that at that time that the attorneys would make like $35,000. Are you kidding? A clerk makes $35,000 or more. So that's why I asked the question. I'm going, are the attorneys back?
The defendants are making more than we do.
And they do.
We do NDIC, MIDC, yes, and much more. And much more perks and benefits and all that, but that's, I can explain that later. But the point is that we do anywhere from 18,000 to 20,000 cases a year. More than, many states do, really. And it's the caseload and the workload. And the thing about the defense, and we all agree at this table, and certainly anyone listening, that every defendant is entitled to a competent defense. No question about that. This is not in opposite to that. But what I'm saying is when we look at these cases, and I'll give you one example, we do about 10,000 domestic violence cases a year, 10,000. And we issue about half, or maybe a little over half of those. And those cases, let's just say we issue half. So those are 5,000 cases in one case category that the defense doesn't see. They only see the cases that we issue. So we do 10,000 domestic violence cases a year. They see much less than that, and that's just one crime category. So that's important to note when you're looking at, it's kind of apples and oranges, but when you're looking at that they're paid more than we are, and they don't see a lot. Probably we issue about 1/3. We don't issue about 1/3 of the cases a year. So they're not seeing the 1/3 out of those 18 to 20,000 cases. So this is a small picture. It's not going to be accurate when you look at what we're talking about, but I'll be happy to come back and talk about that at any time.
And your bottom line is, of course, that salary should be increased.
Of course. I sent you all that
Yes,
information.
absolutely, yes. Thank you, Madam
But
President.
it was not a salary, it's other.
Yeah.
Is there a benefit, a request or benefit of that? Is benefits just as important
It is.
as salaries?
Well, it's just like I talked about at my budget hearing, so this is already public. And I just want to, we are working with Ken on these issues too, as you know. And we sent all this, I did our information to each commissioner about all the issues and the ideas that we had, some of the ideas coming from the Wayne County Public Bar Association, which has committed a lot of time into looking at this. And also I submitted a managerial proposal for increasing their wages and benefits as well. So that's another aspect. I can't really go into that right now, but it's the whole thing that we talked about before. So I just want to make sure that we were on the list of the offices that were under. And we're, yeah, so we can all fight about that. I really know that, but why you're having.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming and look forward to you participating in upcoming meetings. Before I go to our Madam Clerk, I just want to see if there were other points that Ms. Wilson and Mr.
Carmel.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's fine.
before we move to discussion from our clerk.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Commissioner Ray?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm on Ways and Means, and we had some discussion this year, and I've actually been interested in this way back when I was on the city council in Livonia. We had many openings in Livonia, just like we do now, not spending, but the same thing. And are you working like with the administration to evaluate what department, like, we can't just every year keep saying we have 1,000 openings in all of our department. I mean, every year it's the same thing since I've been on. When is someone going to reevaluate what's really needed? And I'm not talking about your departments or the prosecutor's department. What's really needed in there, because everything is budgeted. You have 1,000 positions, and I don't even know if that number's right. I'm just taking that as an example. You have 1,000 positions that are every year are funded. And we're not having enough salary for positions that we really truly need. If we got rid of the funding for that and put it into the positions we really need, this may help alleviate a lot of this. So is this being looked at?
So I cannot, speak on all the budget preparation processes, but if you recall some of the testimony from the budget hearing from the budget director at the time, the CFO at the time, and those were points that were made in their presentations.
And they're gone.
Well, but the county's still moving forward, and there are people who are in those spots and places now. So I think, again, with the questions that you proposed to the county, that's something that really for the budget director to refer to.
Okay, I just think that
we could really like move forward if every department was really looking at their department, and finding out what is needed, and that's consistent with the testimony that they provided during the hearing. So going, so hopefully that keeps going. All
And
right.
that's something that, this task force and this commission will look at and make recommendations to do as well. Just looking at it to see if it makes sense, on where it makes sense. And then, like I said, taking those funds and then adding to the salary line. Okay, very good. Thank you. Commissioner Doss?
One last question, comment. Could we get some data on any independent contractors that we have working for the county that really should be, bargaining, union roles, but we were unable to fill, and then, maybe out of desperation, we hired them as independent contractors, and we are probably paying them more.
In civil service.
Yeah. I guess that's, thank you.
There's, at least a couple that I'm aware of, and probably more. But we'll, put that on our questions, the details of where.
Well, I think the clerk can speak on that.
They have to do that as well, yep, clerk and JDF as well. So, well, Madam Clerk, welcome to the table. Thank you. Thank you for coming, kind of on the spot, but, I want you to participate in this because it absolutely affects your area as well. So any, comments you would like?
Oh, I have a lot. First of all, good afternoon, everyone, and as the prosecutor said, first, let me say that pre-pandemic, this has been my drum song about staffing and wages and the benefits. The pandemic just exacerbated everything. So I'm glad that both branches, this body as well as the prosecutor shared, we met with the administration this morning. So this is a shift, and I'm happy that it has come, and it's about making something happen from it versus just talking about it. But and I want to just go through and I send over every 2 weeks as far as. Someone say, how many are this? I said, okay, let me write that down. So it's 106 budgeted positions for court clerks. Out of that, we have 24 vacancies. 14 of those vacancies are at Frank Murphy. So currently there's like 24 court clerks at Frank Murphy, and there's 23 dockets. And I think that was last week. It was 2 call-ins, which caused for dockets to be delayed. So in all of it, but Frank Murphy is awful. It's awful. And so that's what the budgeted runs. 47 of those are at KMAC. Of the court clerks, 37 are at Frank Murphy and 22 are at Lincoln Hall. Somebody asked, well, where are the people going? Well, I'll tell you where they're going. Some of them is right in the same zip code. We're competing with each other. And as you said, Chair Bell, we have court clerks that leave and go to 36th district because the entry pay for a court clerk is higher than the largest court of the state. So they go to 36th district. Some retire and say, I'm done. I can make this with retirement, staying home, don't have to pay for parking, et cetera, et cetera. Case in point, over at Frank Murphy, out of those 23 court clerks, I think 14 of them are still in training. Training takes 6 months. So you have newbies that are in the courtroom. So they go to 36th district, they retire, they go to the probation department, they go to 3rd Circuit, they leave the county clerk to go to 3rd Circuit. Case in point, the salary for a AA for the county, I think it starts out at 34 and some change. Well, we've had people that look, oh, the court starts out at 50. So they leave us and go to the court. Another example is expungements. That is just busting at the seams. What I did, we have some administrative assistant positions. because Frank Murphy is in such dire straits, I've been talking with some of the judges, mainly who has been great is Judge McConaughey. I've taken some of his law students or criminal justice classes. Well, they come and they see, oh, wait a minute, I can go to the city and when I'm making 34 and some change here, the city is paying 60 for the same thing. So they're leaving us. So Third Circuit, and also they'll leave the county clerk's office to go be judicial assistants or administrative assistants for Third Circuit Court. So we compete internally. They go to the State Court of Appeals and they go to Oakland County Circuit Court. So that's just some of the places because of course, when they leave, we're asking, where are you going? And so others have branched out and done other things. And then what I look at is that I have a 17-year-old nephew that works at a smoothie shop on Telegraph in Southfield. He makes $13 an hour. And so when I found that out, and I'm thinking all of the processes, statute-driven things that the people in the clerk's office have to do, and we applaud that they just went to $15. I mean, some increases to it, but I don't think we should pat ourselves on the back too hard. And then I'm not saying, Commissioner Coleman, that you meant it this way, but when the prosecutor, when you said, well, with whatever the attorney's level is, they're making 35 something, that's what a clerk makes. I say this over and over again. I think that the clerk's office and the work, statute-driven work that the staff does, don't minimize what they do. Everything that they do is based on what the statute says and the fact that they deserve more as well. So they're not just a clerk, they're clerks. And then that's just the regular clerks I'm talking about now. If you ask any judge, as they see now, they're crippled without their court clerk. So, but anyway, I'm gonna shut up. I just was trying to write everything else that I was writing down so I could answer my
Speaking of the clerks in a demeanor like as such.
I didn't think you were.
No, because I started with the county as a clerk, well, a typist. So I have great respect for them. No, I just meant clerk in general, clerks, not in the clerk's office, but a clerk in general.
And we have some that are degrees over there working, and there's very few truly senior people that are left. We're in on Saturdays with them just because if they have to be there, I feel I need to be there. So for the month of November, taking out the Thanksgiving weekend, and for the month of December, taking out the Christmas, we've been there right with them because it means that much that they're willing to do it. And the senior people, the seasoned people, the knowledgeable people, they're getting the heck out of Dodge and leaving here and letting me know it's not personal, Ms. G, but I can make this somewhere else. And that is sad. And I have nothing to try to, so we make sure we bought them lunch. But this has been, especially since 2020, and I know it's been for everyone. But this has been close to devastating for me. And it's not that we just do a little of this. We touch every aspect of people's lives. And every aspect, every division is hurting. So anyway, but I'm gonna shut up.
No, thank you. I wanted to hear your perspective and I'm glad you're here because that shows that this is important to you. And I hope your staff sees that you're here because you want something better for them. Absolutely. So I appreciate that. And I want you to come back as we continue this process because at the end of the day, we want to make some substantive changes that are going to, again, retain and attract talent to Wayne County. Retain and attract. Those are the two options that we're going to go by.
So what did you offer their nephew job?
Still a cat tech. That's why I'm in the store, I'm taking out people. You can't compete with that, you know. Okay, you best start paying here.
Okay.
And I don't pay relative.
You can't.
Because I don't wanna be in the paper.
But an operation as big as your thought, yeah. With all the different, different divisions and stuff, then you would be discriminating against.
They feel they're discriminated against, they do, my relative.
We want to make sure that we do whatever we can help you or your relatives. Good job.
You know, Washington saying that no police officers can serve with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office.
So if that happens down the road or whenever, I want you to stand with me, with the media. Okay.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to explain it. So my thing is, rather than try to explain something, just don't do it. As ethical and as reasonable and as honest as you could be, just don't do it because it's gonna go somewhere else.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. And, Madam Clerk, please stay, please.
Oh, sorry.
No, just stay, don't leave the building.
I'm going to sit.
Okay, all right,
They may be right.
Thank you. And again, I mean, our elected officials are, and you can see by them being here, this is very important to them. And we want to do whatever we can do to alleviate the pain that they see every day in their offices, right? Because what county government does is we work for people. I mean, we are workforce. I mean, that's what we do. We need people to do what we do. And without that, we're not doing what we're mandated to do by the state and by the charter. So we've got to come up with a way to fix this, address this ASAP. You think of more things, then I'll take it over to public comments. I know you have some cards that you've given all of us, I believe, as far as what we can hand out to people, to let them know of opportunities here at the county. Want to talk about that?
Sure, part of our recruitment strategy is to get the word out. And, you know, interesting enough that, probably in a given month, our fifth recruitment source are our employees. So as we are out in the community, just like Madam Clerk indicated in the grocery store, to be able to hand someone information on classifications and how to apply for Wayne County job, we want to make it easier for everyone. And so we have a QR code that is available on the cards, very easy to use, very quick. So we did provide postcard size information to each of the commissioners. We're also doing mailings, and anytime you do your newsletter, if you would like something from us as far as advertising or recruitment of Wayne County positions, we'll have something available for you that you can just put into your newsletter. That's professionally done by our communications team.
Okay, very good. I'm doing a newsletter right now.
Okay.
So if you can get something to our PR, where's
Jan?
where's James?
And I
mean,
think it's on the website. I'm doing a newsletter as well.
No, where is,
Jim?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You should go to Jim.
We're pulling it down from, we're doing a newsletter as well in my office too. I just looked at before I came over here. We're pulling it down from the website, but we could probably have Jim to pull it down as well. And it's also in another electronic format.
So just let us know and we can send it to you also. You can pull it down from the website, or we can give you the
Yeah.
the PDF or JPEG.
Now the cards, you said that there are you have cards.
Yes,
Okay, if you can provide some to my office,
sure.
I will give them to my community liaison. He attends all of the meetings. Because there's some meetings in my district, all the community meetings in my district, he attends, and he'll be glad to hand those out for you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're doing, this is for the public to know, gathering information, gathering data. So at the end of this, we could take that data and then make recommendations that will be beneficial for the budget process, for the ways and means, and to implement the things that we see need to be implemented going forward. But right now, we're data collecting and have discussions so that we can know what we need to do, what we need to put into the budget for make things better to attract and retain our employees. Do you have any final words, Ms. Wilson?
Just that, as going through the bargaining history, that our marching orders from the county exec and administration was to look at and improve the historical wage stagnation that we know we experience as a county, and to increase our recruitment, improve retention and sustainability. And so we look forward to continuing to participate.
Thank you. Comments from, members, Commissioner Falcone?
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice that our court counsel put the note to, to the prosecutor, to the prosecutors. So I'd like for her to share with us that note that she sent.
I can help. This kind of goes back to Mr. Don's original question. Our benefits information are available on the county website. And the compensation or pay plan is also available on our SharePoint and each of the collective bargaining agreements. It doesn't discount for us responding to you directly, but if there's some information that you want or your staff wants immediately, the information is public.
And the note that I slipped was just the pay schedule for the assistant corporation counsel and the assistant prosecutor.
Press your button.
Oops. I'm sorry. What I slipped to prosecutor Woody was pay schedule from the GBA contract, which has the steps for the APAs and ACCs in corporation counsel and prosecutor.
So there's a same, correct?
So that your attorneys make the same as the prosecutor's attorneys?
Yes, and as I think Mr. Carbona alluded to, we're a little bit unique, I think, in some circuits because there are different levels to each, there are different levels for each attorney, and then within the attorney level, then there are also step increases that the attorneys receive.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Mr. Clean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since some of the data you were talking about is available in cyberspace somewhere, could you send those links to all the commissioners? Because, I could do a blind search using Google, but I'll never get there.
Right.
So if all of this is easy to be had and easy to be found, then there must be a few easy links
No problem.
to see really what it is and what it isn't once we're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
and Commissioner Khalid, when we go out to our community meetings, we mention link. They go, oh, well, they need something in their hands. And when you mention link, most of the folks who attend the community meetings, they're maybe seniors or whatever, but they have grandkids and stuff and children, but links turns them off. But that's why I think if you have some cards with information on it, we can pass it out. But
And those links,
I
I
use
think, are
those
internally,
cards out
those
in
are for
public.
us. Yeah. Huh?
I use the cards out in public, but
Yeah.
I do think for ourselves
Card, yeah.
and for
internally.
our staff
Yeah.
here,
I agree.
Internally, we
we have-
look at that information for our staff. So. Okay, Ms. Murphy? Final. Commissioner Falcone, any final words? Commissioner Dodd? Good, okay. So, look at the calendar here. I think we're gonna try to keep the schedule of third meeting, third Thursday of the month. So that will take us to approximately, gosh, a long day, the 16th of February.
You're gonna send us out something on that.
Yeah. And then maybe the 23rd. Okay. Yeah, I think I told the Pam to make it the standing meeting for the third Thursday of the month. Yeah, but that could possibly change, but we'll keep it there for now. We'll notify you that change. But yeah, so a lot of work to do. Thank you all for coming in. We will continue this conversation and hopefully have a good product that we can produce and have a policy paper on by June this time. Before we get into the budget, then we get incorporated into the budget. Okay,
Thank you.
any final questions? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry about the clerk. I'll take your job, like. Yeah, that's it.
The other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
Nope.
Moving to public comment.
Is there anyone on the Zoom who would like to give a public comment at this time? one hand. There's one hand up, so go ahead. They are.
APA Anna. Wait again.
Good afternoon. Yes, my name's Anna Postiggian. I'm an assistant prosecuting attorney. I'm a member of the GBA board. Over the last few months, members of the GBA board and myself have been doing sort of a deep dive into other counties, as Prosecutor Worthy explained, looking at counties in the Tri-County area, as well as counties, other counties that are similarly sized, and those that aren't around the state, as well as nationwide. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that all of the other counties surveyed have a dynamic pay schedule, whereas Wayne County has a static pay schedule. This is something that is causing our county to chronically fall behind in comps across the board. So as Mr. Carmona explained, yes, every year an APA or an ACC will receive a step increase. Every other county has those step increases, but also includes an annual raise ranging from 1.5 to 4% and even up to 5% in Washtenaw County. So I wanted that to just be something you're aware of and take into consideration while you're looking at redoing the budget for potentially the remainder of this year and going forward, that a dynamic pay schedule across the board may be something that you want to consider.
Thank you. I wrote that down, dynamic pay schedule versus a static pay schedule. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Next is iPhone.
iPhone, and you do have 2 minutes. Whoever is coming up as iPhone.
Yes, I'm sorry. This is President Buffington here. I just like to point out two things. You guys are asking questions of the administration. Ms. Wilson is newly here, less than a year's time, and Mr. Carmona has not been involved in our negotiations over the years. I bring up in every meeting of the commission for over 10 years. I've been here 30 plus years, President Buffington. I've been a court clerk since 1997. Things that can be touched on, you will not get the answers from the administration here because the administration is so new within Wayne County's HR department. So I would suggest that you dig a little deeper and ask other portions of Wayne County, and maybe they can get questions answered through the few retirees that came back to work with them, but they aren't able to touch on the issues that we have been going through for the past years to be able to answer this committee's questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Buffington, and you reminded me of a statement I made at the first meeting, which was I am taking comments from the public testimony, if you will, and we have received about 3, but I'm gonna, get them all together, get them combined, to break them up. So I am certainly taking written testimony from employees, because this is an all hands on deck situation. We want to make sure that we are hearing from the people who are in the trenches as well. So know that everyone's opinion, everyone's suggestions, especially, are going to be taken into consideration. Thank you for joining us today.
Yolanda Shepherd.
Hello, Yolanda Shepherd, President of Local 1862. Just a couple comments, but first, thank you for continuing this task force to at least investigate and try to resolve some of the issues that are going on within the employees. There are no step increases currently in place for most of the locals. I can't remember the young lady's name who stated that they have step increases in place. But currently, for most of your other bargaining units, we have not had step increases in place since the consent agreement back in 2015. With the raises that were, when they raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and then the employees who were on staff at the time, they received a 2.5% increase. But when you hire new employees, that was not negotiated, that $15 go up 2.5%. So the new hirees are still coming in at $15 an hour. So you're not going to increase your workforce by continuing to keep the base pay where it is. We also have to continue to look at the outsourcing costs. We are spending billions of dollars in outsourcing. We need to look at that at some point in the future to see how we can curtail that and to put some of that money back into the coffers so that the employees can be the recipients of it. Thank you for allowing me to make comments. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate that.
Amanda Morris Smith.
Oh, good afternoon. I hadn't raised my hand for public comment, but I will take the opportunity to say thank you for having this meeting. I'm the president of the Government Bar Association, and I logged in late because I had a bad Zoom link, and I only caught the tail end of prosecutors Worthy's answers to your questions. I just want to make clear that GBA has done a tremendous amount of research and data compilation in support of our request for changes to salary and benefits, and I'd be more than happy to share that data and our analysis with any any commissioner that is interested in receiving it.
If you could email that to us, that would be wonderful. P.
To your
Lane-
office?
P as in Paul, Lane at waynecounty.com.
Yes, absolutely. I will do that today.
And you're with the Bar Association, correct?
Yes, I'm the president of the Government Bar Association, so I represent about 160 attorneys for Corporation Counsel and Wayne County Prosecutor's Office.
Okay, great. Yeah, please email that to our clerk, P. Lane at waynecounty.com.
I will. Thank you.
P. Twin,
Yes, ma'am. I don't have anything.
if there's anyone else that has their hand up?
Your hands are raised.
Thank you. Okay, anyone in the room have any public comments? Okay. Okay, very good. So we will continue this and I will give questions over to you all and then practical questions over to our electeds as well, just to get some feedback as to what they're doing in their respective offices. But thank you all for your time. We look forward to continuing that. All right, meet adjourned. Thank you.